Welcome back to our channel. In 1976, as the United States was preparing to celebrate its bicentennial, the air buzzed with patriotic fervor. Parades, commemorative stamps, special coin designs, all were part of a national movement to honor 200 years of independence. The U.S. Mint took part too, producing specially designed quarters, half dollars, and dollar coins marked with the dual date, 1776 to 1976. Yet, amid all this pageantry, the humble one-dime coin carried on, with its regular design, unchanged, overlooked, steady. It wasn't selected for the bicentennial redesign, nor was it spotlighted in the commemorative frenzy. Still, the dime had its own story to tell. Unseen and unnoticed, a silent anomaly emerged from the presses. Not dramatic, not loud, but quietly significant, this dime, minted in the shadows of louder celebrations, bore a secret. Produced in massive quantities at Philadelphia and Denver, the 1976 Roosevelt dime appeared at first glance like any other. The same profile of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, the same torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse standard, unremarkable. But within that ocean of dimes lay a mistake. A mistake not grand in scope, but microscopic, delicate, almost whispering its presence. It would take years before someone truly heard it. Decades passed. Coins clinked in pockets, slid across vending machines, and disappeared into couch cushions. The world moved on. By the mid-1990s, a small-time collector in rural Ohio named Raymond Talbot stumbled across something peculiar. He wasn't a professional numismatist. He didn't own a microscope or ultraviolet lamp. He simply loved dimes. A childhood habit passed down from his grandfather, who believed every dime held a story worth discovering. One rainy afternoon, Raymond sifted through a jar of pocket change he'd kept in his basement for over a decade. As he wiped the coins clean with a soft cloth, something about a 1976 dime felt off. The coin seemed thinner, slightly askew, the edge oddly smooth in places. The more he stared at it, the more it unsettled him. He compared it with another 1976 dime. This one felt lighter. He wasn't imagining it. Something was different. He placed the dime under a basic magnifier and drew a breath. Part of the EN, Liberty, was missing, partially struck. Stranger still, the rim was misaligned, giving the entire face a skewed appearance. And then, the most alarming detail, there appeared to be remnants of another image just beneath Roosevelt's chin. A faint curve, barely visible, like the ghost of a previous die. Could it be a double strike? A misfeed? Raymond didn't know. He only knew he'd never seen another dime like it. He sent the coin off to a friend in Michigan, a retired Mint employee who confirmed the suspicion. It was, unmistakably, an error coin. A striking misalignment, possibly a double die obverse, compounded by an off-center strike and weak planchet structure. Not only rare, but almost unheard of for a 1976 dime, especially in an era when bicentennial coins dominated the spotlight. Raymond was stunned. He'd uncovered something that wasn't supposed to exist. A whisper from the past, hiding in plain sight. At first, the coin's value was speculative. He posted about it on an online coin forum, just a few pictures and a description. The response was tepid. Most brushed it off as a worn coin. But then, a prominent collector of mint errors noticed it. He reached out, asked for high-resolution photos, and quickly recognized the layering of multiple error types. Not only was it a misaligned die strike, but the coin showed evidence of die clash marks, subtle lines crossing Roosevelt's jawline, typically seen when dies strike each other without a planchet in between. These combinations were extremely unusual, especially in coins that somehow made it past quality control. Offers started to trickle in. $100 here, $200 there. Raymond declined. Something inside him told him to wait. And wait he did. By the early 2000s, the internet had transformed numismatics. Collectors now shared high-quality images, collaborated across continents, debated die pairings, and minting anomalies in real time. Word of the 1976 dime with a layered error spread. Other collectors began searching their own stashes. A few similar coins surfaced, but none with quite the same complexity. Some had off-center strikes, others had faint doubling, but none combined them all the way Raymond's coin did. At a coin show in Pennsylvania in 2007, Raymond displayed the coin publicly for the first time. The booth was modest, just a small velvet case and a laminated description. A quiet buzz began to circulate by midday. Experts from grading companies stopped by, inspected it under loupes, nodded, murmured. One even muttered the phrase, mid-anomaly convergence, a term rarely used except in instances of multiple simultaneous strike errors. For the first time, Raymond sensed the true gravity of what he held. The value began its slow but deliberate climb. From a few $100s to a certified appraisal of over $1,500 once authenticated and encapsulated by a top-tier grading firm. But the price wasn't just monetary, it began attracting attention from error coin enthusiasts, Roosevelt Dime specialists, and even those studying mint machinery history. Theories formed. Perhaps a faulty die was reused after a failed cleanup. Perhaps the coin was caught in a rare press malfunction during a late-night shift. Some even speculated a rogue mint employee had experimented during the bicentennial chaos. None of these could be proven, but all added mystique. What made this error stand apart wasn't just the visible anomalies. It was the timing. 1976 was meant to be flawless. The bicentennial marked a high point in mint publicity. All systems were supposed to be under scrutiny. Yet this coin slipped through. It didn't shout for attention. It whispered for decades, waiting for someone with the right eyes. Then came a twist no one expected. In 2015, a collector from Nevada claimed to have found a coin nearly identical to Raymond's. The photos matched in eerie detail, the same missing partial E, same clash marks, same off-center strike. But something was different. Upon authentication, the new coin was found to be lighter by 0.5 grams. Not due to wear. It was struck on a foreign planchet. That revelation changed everything. During the 1970s, the U.S. Mint occasionally struck foreign coinage for other countries. Planchets meant for Central American coinage, for instance, were sometimes processed at U.S. facilities. Somehow, a foreign blank likely meant for a 10 centavos coin had made its way into the dime press. Raymond's coin was revisited. It too was found to be marginally underweight. Both were now classified not only as error coins, but as foreign planchet strike errors. Rarer still. Possibly just two known examples in existence. The overlap in their defects suggested they may have been produced on the same day, during the same flawed press run. The implications were staggering. Not only had an error occurred during the height of bicentennial perfectionism, but it had happened twice with coins that mirrored each other. Collectors were now obsessed. Auctions whispered about the coin in hushed tones. Some feared more examples might surface and dilute the mystique. Others hoped the opposite, eager to build a catalog of 1976 foreign planchet dime errors. But they remained elusive. No additional specimens came forward. By 2020, the coin's valuation soared to over $12,000 during a private transaction. Not for its metal, not even solely for its error, but for the story it told. A story of oversight during a year meant to be flawless. A hidden imperfection beneath a national celebration. Raymond, now aging and mostly retired from active collecting, kept a small note with the coin. Discovered in dust, but sharper than gold. He never sold it, despite offers that crept past $20,000 by 2023. For him, the coin was more than currency. It was a reminder that silence often speaks the loudest. That not all treasures glitter at first glance. Then came another surprise. In 2024, a numismatic researcher cross-referencing mint records for a publication on bicentennial coinage uncovered an anomaly in the logbooks. A brief entry from June 1976 noted a die alignment calibration failure at the Philadelphia Mint. No details, just a line item and a timestamp. The date matched the suspected window of Raymond's error coin. It wasn't proof, but it was close. A fragment of forgotten paperwork suggesting something went wrong, something quickly noted, then buried. This discovery reignited interest in the coin. A historian traced the possible foreign planchets back to a Guatemalan 10 centavos contract. The dimensions matched. A quiet theory emerged. During the frenzy of bicentennial production, a small batch of foreign blanks was misfed into the dime press line. Most were caught. 2 weren't. Now, with only 2 known specimens, both verified, and with their origins likely tied to a foreign contract mix-up, the coin had transitioned beyond error status. It was a symbol of serendipity, of oversight, a mystery. By early 2025, auction whispers reached fever pitch. An anonymous collector placed a sealed offer, $44,000 for either known specimen. Raymond refused. He still had the coin, tucked away in a velvet case, beside the note in his own handwriting. And so, the 1976 dime, silent for so long, now echoed through collector halls and auction houses. A coin never meant to be rare, never meant to be remarkable. But it became both. Not because of perfection, but because of a flaw. One no one saw coming. In the haze of a crisp autumn morning in 1978, machines hummed with clockwork precision inside the Denver Mint. Copper and nickel discs slid along polished conveyor belts, clinking together like a metallic symphony. These were Roosevelt dimes, small in size, yet mighty in volume, churned out by the millions to fuel everyday commerce across the United States. To the untrained eye, each looked like the next, bearing the stern profile of Franklin D. Roosevelt on one side and a torch flanked by olive and oak branches on the reverse. Nothing seemed unusual. Nothing seemed extraordinary. Yet within this mass production, hidden like a whispered secret, a mistake slipped through unnoticed. It was the kind of anomaly no one was supposed to see until someone did. For years, these coins passed from palm to pocket to cash register without suspicion. They paid for morning coffees, slid into vending machines, and jingled in the pockets of commuters. But time, as it often does, would not let the error remain buried forever. Far from the mint, in a modest Ohio suburb, a collector named Gerald found himself thumbing through his change late one evening, a habit born of patient obsession. His eyes, trained by decades of quiet study, caught on something subtle, something he couldn't quite name. The edge of a dime felt wrong, incomplete. The ridges that usually circled the rim were interrupted, smoothed over in patches. Curious, he turned it over. The reverse looked off. Not dramatically so, but enough to unsettle the rhythm of his gaze. The flame of the torch seemed faintly doubled. As if flickering dot, he brought it beneath a magnifier, and there it was. The first whisper of the error revealed itself, a faint, ghost-like duplication of part of the design, shadowing the original like an echo. It was not a double strike. It wasn't an obvious misprint. It was more elusive than that, as if the coin had second thoughts while being born. Gerald's pulse quickened. Over the years, he had seen plenty of common errors: off-center strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, but this was different. Subtler. It demanded attention, not because it screamed, but because it whispered. He stayed up well past midnight, researching, flipping through the grimy pages of reference guides and archive mint reports. The 1978 Roosevelt dime had no widely known error varieties. No official mention of doubled dies, no famous anomalies. And yet, in his hand, something defied those expectations. A misalignment of detail around the torch's base, a faint doubling of the olive branch leaves, and an unusual flattening of the rim on one side. It was as if multiple errors had collided in one solitary coin, an impossibility. The next day, he took it to a regional coin show, wrapped carefully in a velvet pouch like a relic. The experts there examined it with a mix of curiosity and caution. "Possibly a die clash," one muttered. "Or a hub doubling," offered another, squinting. No one could say for certain. The mystery deepened. It wasn't just an error. It was an error they couldn't neatly categorize, and that made it infinitely more compelling. As word spread, so did the theories. Some said it was a transitional error, speculating wildly about a test die left in production. Others suggested it might be a case of improper die preparation, a rare miscalibration where the dies had been etched incorrectly, leaving a blurred echo of their design. Still others whispered that it might be an entirely undocumented variety, minted during a shift change, when human attention lulled just long enough for one coin to slip free from perfection. Years passed, and the legend of the 1978 dime grew quietly. Collectors whispered about it in forums and late-night phone calls. A few others began appearing, never in great numbers, never with complete consistency. Some showed the faint doubling on the reverse, others the oddly smooth rim. No two were exactly alike, yet they bore the same spectral traits. A pattern, yes, but an erratic one enough to suggest that the mistake was not from a single damaged die, but perhaps from a batch affected by a shared, obscure flaw. The kind of thing no mint would ever admit. By 1993, Gerald's coin had been appraised unofficially at around $70. A modest sum, yet one that acknowledged its uniqueness. 10 years later, an auction lot quietly included a similar 1978 dime, its description sparse and its photos grainy. It sold for $240 to an anonymous bidder. That same year, a numismatic journal ran a footnote about anomalous Roosevelt dime traits observed in 1978 specimens. No attribution. No confirmation. But it was enough. The internet arrived, and with it, a digital flood of knowledge and speculation. Someone uploaded high-resolution images of their 1978 dime, eerily similar to Gerald's. Another collector from Arizona shared their own find, identical doubling, identical rim smoothing, but with a curious twist. The date was oddly bold, as if overpunched. Now the story shifted. Could it be a repunch date? Could a mint worker have attempted a quiet correction that backfired? In time, dealers began setting aside their 1978 dimes, inspecting them under scopes. Most were ordinary. A few bore hints, nothing definitive. But rarity, after all, is not just about the count, it's about the chase. The more elusive the target, the more precious it becomes. By 2014, Gerald's dime had become a numismatic ghost story, a coin some believed in, some dismissed, and a few hunted obsessively. He received an offer $3,000 from a private collector. He declined, not because of greed, but because of sentiment. The coin had become part of his life, the way some people adopt stray animals or unfinished symphonies. Then came the twist. A retired mint employee, attending a coin show incognito, overheard a conversation about the 1978 dime. He approached the booth quietly and asked to see the coin. He held it, turned it in the light, and frowned. "They never meant to release these," he said softly. "We were testing new reverse dies for durability. Slightly altered relief, experimental polish. The batch was pulled, or should have been." Gerald froze. "How many got out?" The man hesitated. "Can't say. Maybe a few hundred. Maybe less. Denver was understaffed that month. There were mistakes." That single conversation, relayed and repeated, changed everything. Now it wasn't just an error, it was a phantom from a canceled experiment. The doubling, the strange relief, the rim, each part made sense. It was never one error. It was the residue of a secret trial, a whisper of what could have been a new design standard. And somehow, a few dimes escaped into the world. The market trembled. Listings for 1978 dimes with any anomaly began to swell. Coins once worth 10 cents were now fetching hundreds. But not all were authentic. The error was too subtle, too easily mimicked. Third-party grading services began receiving a flood of submissions. Most were returned as ordinary. A few, very few, were certified with notes like, "Reverse anomaly possible experimental die." Gerald's coin, now encapsulated and authenticated, became the standard. It was referenced in articles, cited in studies, and sought after by collectors who appreciated the poetry of imperfection. By 2021, its estimated value had climbed to $18,000. And still, Gerald held onto it. What made it so valuable wasn't just its rarity, but its enigma. It represented a moment of human error wrapped inside institutional secrecy, preserved in metal. A coin never meant to exist. And with every retelling, its legend deepened. Then came one final turn. At a small estate sale in Colorado, a box of old mint materials surfaced. Inside were scratched notes, faded memos, and a metal tag labeled D78 Test Die Reverse. The document beside it read, "Experimental reverse rejected for indistinct torch relief. Destroy upon next audit." It had never been destroyed. The die, though rusted, confirmed every suspicion. The double relief was intentional, a failed attempt at design enhancement. The torch was redrawn for visual emphasis, but the die's pressure calibration had been flawed. Coins struck with it bore a shallow echo, a blur that couldn't be detected without scrutiny. The smooth rim was part of the test, designed to prevent edge chipping, but it compromised texture. The documents authenticated Gerald's dime and a handful of others as relics from a quiet experiment that had slipped past the safeguards. The numismatic community erupted. Museums called. Offers soared. One collector from Hong Kong proposed $94,000. Another, an anonymous buyer from Switzerland, offered $115,000, citing it as a convergence of American error and intent. But Gerald didn't sell. He loaned it to a coin museum, where it sits today, next to the very die that birthed it, all from a coin meant to be forgotten. All from 10. In the early months of 2004, the United States Mint carried on with its routine duty producing coins for daily commerce. The dime, a staple of American pocket change since the late 18th century, continued its familiar presence. That year, nothing in particular seemed unusual. The Roosevelt Dime, which had graced the 10-cent piece since 1946, was struck as it always had been, a profile of Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse, torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse, symbols of liberty, peace, and strength. These elements were so deeply ingrained in American consciousness that the average person barely gave them a second glance. Coins were being minted in enormous quantities at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. In 2004 alone, more than 2 billion Roosevelt dimes were pressed. The machinery moved with cold, mechanical rhythm, hundreds of dies pounding blank planchets into fully formed coins each minute. Inspectors roamed the lines, trained eyes checking for defects, but their vigilance could only go so far in a process so industrial, so relentless. And it was in this chaos of speed and repetition that something slipped through. And O's sirens rang, no alarms triggered. The error that occurred was subtle, silent enough to pass unnoticed through machines and humans alike. But the coin that emerged was different. Not grotesquely misshapen. Not missing parts. It was clean, elegant, and entirely wrong. For months, the coin drifted in circulation, its peculiarity undetected. It passed hands in grocery stores, vanished into vending machines, perhaps sat forgotten at the bottom of a child's piggy bank. Then one afternoon, a collector named Martin Delaney, a man whose obsession with dimes bordered on the religious, was sorting through a modest box of change purchased at a local estate sale. It was a casual habit for Martin, one cultivated over years. Each coin was examined under a loupe, catalogued, and if lucky added to his slowly growing archive. At first, the 2004 dime didn't catch his eye. The coin was slightly worn, but not unusual, until Martin noticed a strange gleam on its reverse side. He frowned. The torch looked off. He tilted the coin under the light again. The lines of the flame blurred where they should have been sharp. A closer inspection revealed something odd, doubling. But not just any doubling, this was strong, unambiguous. The letters in E pluribus unum were ghosted beside themselves, like an echo frozen in metal. Martin's pulse quickened. His eyes darted back to the obverse. Liberty, too, showed faint mirroring. Roosevelt's profile slightly doubled around the nose and chin. He knew instantly that this was no common circulation coin. This was a double die, one of the most coveted error types among numismatists. Double die errors occur during the hubbing process, when the die itself is misaligned in repeated impressions. When a misaligned die strikes thousands of planchets before being replaced, it spreads that error across hundreds, or if undetected, tens of thousands of coins. But in the modern era, quality control had largely eliminated such mistakes. A double die in 2004? Unheard of. Martin's fingers trembled as he secured the dime in a coin flip and scribbled a label across the top. He didn't sleep that night. Over the next several days, Martin scoured online forums, auction databases, coin registry sites. Nothing. No mention of a 2004 double die dime. Could it be the only one? The thought was intoxicating. He submitted the coin to a grading service under their variety attribution category. Weeks passed. The package returned, finally, in the familiar slab. 2004 10C, double die reverse, 58 Australian dollars. The numismatic community erupted when Martin posted photos. The coin story rippled across collectors' circles like an electric current. Experts weighed in. Die specialists compared the marker's split serifs on pluribus, a doubled flame, marginally shifted devices on the obverse. This was no minor machine doubling, no mechanical chatter. This was legitimate, dramatic, and most important, unlisted, uncatalogued. A variety that wasn't supposed to exist. Offers started trickling in. $200. Then $500. One collector in Illinois sent a message offering $1,100, but with a condition: exclusivity. He wanted the coin taken off the public forums. Martin refused. The value continued to shift in subtle steps, like a tide. Speculation drove it upward. Then a second coin surfaced. Another collector in Arizona posted a dime with identical features, same doubling on the torch. The lettering, Roosevelt's face. The community gasped. This wasn't a one-off. There was a pattern. And patterns meant potential rarity. Only now did the scale begin to emerge. Despite the billions of 2004 dimes minted, only a handful of this variety were turning up. Word spread beyond online forums to coin shows, dealer networks, and grading services. Submissions increased. Each newly discovered example brought fresh data, some in higher condition, others barely recognizable through the wear. The census count remained low. Fewer than 10 confirmed examples in the first year. The market stirred. Auction houses took notice. Heritage Auctions listed one in MS-64 with an estimate of $800. It hammered at $1,750. Another reached $2,100 in private sale. And then a specimen surfaced in MS-67 full torch, a condition so pristine it seemed to glow. That dime shattered expectations, selling in a confidential transaction for a sum whispered to be north of $7,000. The 2004 double die dime became a legend. Yet the story had not finished revealing itself. Martin continued searching, unable to let the mystery rest. He acquired rolls from coin dealers, bulk lots from auction houses, even traveled to a Tennessee flea market rumored to hold untouched bank bags. There, in the dust-covered chaos of a forgotten coin shop, he found a roll labeled 2004 BU $5. The old man behind the counter waved it off. Martin bought it for $7 and carried it home. Back under the loupe, he examined the coins one by one. Most were clean, bright, unremarkable, until coin number 47. The moment he saw it, his breath caught. This dime was not only doubled, but misaligned. The obverse was off-center by several millimeters, creating a crescent of unstruck metal near the rim. But it was the reverse that stunned him. The doubling was sharper than any he'd seen. The split serifs leapt from the coin. The torch showed not one, but two complete flame impressions. And there, just beneath the olive branch, Something else, a tiny notch. Almost imperceptible. Martin grabbed a microscope. It wasn't a notch. It was a letter. A in extra. S. The mint mark on the obverse still read P for Philadelphia. But this tiny ghost, S, on the reverse was a phantom, a relic of a die used years earlier in San Francisco, perhaps in a test hubbing that had gone awry. It shouldn't have existed. No one could explain it. The prevailing theory was that a retired die had been accidentally reactivated, or that a hybrid die pairing occurred in a rare moment of oversight. Either way, this coin was unique, a double die, off-center, with a ghost mint mark from a different mint. News of the hybrid error ignited the numismatic world again. Theories flourished. A few speculated sabotage. Others believed it was an experimental die accidentally fed into production. The mint issued no official statement. Experts from the American Numismatic Association convened to study Martin's find. They confirmed all three features: strong class 4 doubling, 5% obverse off-center strike, and a ghost reverse S embedded under the die layers. The coin was designated 2004-10C triple error hybrid unique. A private investor, previously unknown to the community but rumored to be assembling the world's most complete error collection, reached out. Martin met him in person in an unmarked office in Manhattan. The man placed an aluminum case on the table, opened it to reveal a spread of coins so rare Martin felt dizzy. He slid over a typed offer, $23,000. Martin stared, silent, but he didn't sell. Years passed. The original double die variety remained elusive, only 16 confirmed by 2010. Their value continued to rise steadily, though not exponentially. But Martin's coin was different. It toured exhibitions, graced the cover of numismatic journals, even featured in a Smithsonian temporary showcase on modern minting mishaps. In 2016, a coin grading and error research symposium in Chicago unveiled a full analysis of the hybrid dime. Using metallographic scanning and die sequencing techniques, researchers uncovered microscopic die scratches that matched a discontinued San Francisco-proof die from 1999. Somehow, a discarded die had been repurposed in Philadelphia in 2004, altered, maybe re-engraved, and pressed back into use. A clerical error? A rogue employee? The truth remained speculative. Then came the twist. In 2022, a retired mint technician anonymously submitted a letter to a numismatic magazine. He claimed responsibility. According to the letter, during a die audit in late 2003, a batch of San Francisco-proof dies had been transferred to Philadelphia for reworking, part of a test to see if older dies could be repolished for circulation use. Most were rejected and scrapped, but one set mistakenly entered the active die inventory. The technician discovered the mix-up only after a few days of production.